For more than half a year, we've been staying true to our promise to drum up excitement for a crossover event between Gravity Falls, Amphibia, and the Owl House. Under the hashtag, the Connected Cartoon Universe, we have dropped all kinds of clues, theories, connections, and possible stories that can be told between these three shows, and the responses have been amazing. Thanks to other eagle-eyed fans out there, we've gathered even more evidence for the Connected Cartoon Universe and have received further confirmation from Matt Brawley that he really wants to make this crossover happen. The crossover event between the Owl House and Amphibia on Disney's Chibi series has also generated a ton of goodwill and excitement from fans. People who were once on the fence about this whole thing are now warming up to the prospects of a real crossover and are already speculating, theorizing, and even creating their own stories. So please, if you want this crossover event to become a real thing, share our previous videos that we've done breaking down the major connections between Gravity Falls, Amphibia, and the Owl House, and share the hashtag Connected Cartoon Universe on whatever social media you have. Over on Twitter, we have literally hundreds of posts from fans all over the world, and if we are able to snag Disney's attention, the greater the chance that Matt can work his magic and get something done. But while we have plenty of evidence to establish a cartoon multiverse between these three shows and possibly others, and in seeming contradiction to what I just said, there is a big problem that we Disney fans have to address. The Connected Cartoon Universe might not happen, and in fact, Disney animation could easily go out the window too. Why? Because Disney is strapped for cash, bleeding resources, and talent. The man who set the House of Mouse on fire is back to reign over his hellish mess, and a corporate proxy war is about to commence, pitting companies against each other, billionaires against millionaires, and Disney's own bloated executive class is sharpening their swords and knives for a real-life Game of Thrones. Well, that sounds lovely, doesn't it? But why does this threaten the Connected Cartoon Universe and animation in general? And what can we do about angry rich folk doing each other in, other than simply reclining in our seats and getting a bucket of popcorn ready and watching it all burn down? Why should we do anything in the first place? And what does this have to do with novice writers? That is exactly what I intend to answer here in this video. Hi there everyone, Lars here from Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And let me start with the last question. Any creative endeavor requires an investment. This could be an investment of time, an investment of money, an investment of manpower, an investment of skills, an investment of resources, etc. If you want any creative endeavor to succeed, you must have a goal for that project and calculate the costs you must put in to help you reach that goal. When it comes to writing a book, you must invest time and skill in writing it. You will invest manpower to have it read and edited before publishing. You will invest money in the production and advertising of that book. And if you cannot cough up the time, the money, the skill, or the manpower, your book will not be as successful as it could be, or it will fall apart entirely. A massive company, then, like Disney, might at first glance appear to have everything it needs to succeed. It has tens of thousands of employees. The vast majority of those employees are very talented at their work, because Disney demands the best, so only the best remain working with them. The company is rolling in billions of dollars, and many claim that Disney is just too big to fail. But failing is exactly what they're doing. Disney stocks dropped 44% in 2022, the largest drop in the company's value since the 70s. And since the pandemic, the company has not paid out any returns to their shareholders, meaning that investors are throwing their money away, destroying confidence in the Disney brand. Further compounding this distrust is the fact that many of their movies have underperformed in recent years. Disney movies are supposed to make tons of money, not just break even or fall short of the billion that they're projected to make. Disney Plus also is tens of billions of dollars behind in generating revenue, which Bob Chapek supposedly tried to cover up by cooking the books. Meanwhile, the parks are slashing attractions while raising prices in sheer desperation to milk customers for all they're worth. In short, everything looks bad for Disney right now. They're trying to save money by consolidating departments, letting people go, and they aren't hiring anyone new. Then you have Disney executives falling left and right, and plots are forming to take down even more of the bigwigs. But while all the drama is going down right now, the problem that threatens the connected cartoon universe actually began long ago, and it's important that we address this in order to really understand the perilous situation that we animation fans find ourselves in. Under Michael Eisner's management of Disney in the early 2000s, the company slowly moved away from animated productions, both on the big screen and on television. The reason for this was the growing cost these projects, especially with improved artistic techniques and blending hand-drawn animation with CGI, it just was becoming too much. But thanks to the successes of DreamWorks' Shrek series and Pixar's ever-growing popularity and successes, executives at the House of Mouse saw that they could crank out more shows and movies in quick succession by switching from traditional animation to computer animation. This was unfortunately complemented by an overall disregard for Disney's channels, especially where their cartoons are concerned. Live action was quicker and easy to manage, and animation therefore was just left to fend for itself, relying on ever smaller budgets and an ever-shrinking staff. This ironically clashes with Roy Disney's claim that the entire business was stymied by micromanagement. Bob Iger was later brought in as the new CEO, and he tackled the problems Disney was facing at the time with gusto and big dreams. And there is no denying that Iger injected new life into the Disney company and pursued aggressive expansion, which greatly benefited Disney, making the company really rich and even more influential than it had arguably ever been. But this came with its own risk and cost. To drum up greater revenue, Iger placed the company's worth on its stock value, not its bottom line. This is why I told my students back when I taught about the Great Depression that the stock exchange is run primarily on black magic. A company only has to appear successful in order to have its stock skyrocket and generate wealth, while it could be in reality on the precipice of destruction. Anyway, Bob Iger now yoked his rising star to a massive gamble. He had to produce extreme successes and continue to make Disney look very impressive. This led to the acquisition of Marvel and the production of the MCU, and also the acquisition of Star Wars, and all the insanity that has ensued since then because Disney refuses to let it fail, because they can't let it fail. And then also the full conquest of Pixar and squeezing that company for all the movies that they're worth. And of course, the acquisition of 20th Century Fox and all of its movies and shows. And of course, Disney then taking a majority share of Hulu and expanding the Disney parks worldwide, and then creating Disney Plus as a direct competitor to the streaming juggernaut Netflix. Whew! Well, these successes did indeed flow in like the rising tide, and by doing all of these things, the MCU to Star Wars to 20th Century Fox to Disney Plus, it caused billions of dollars to be generated, making stocks climb. Disney was on a roll, and in the midst of all this wealth and glut of victories, Disney utterly ignored its animation and smaller television projects. Iger had greenlit a lot of creativity within the smaller division, but it was the move of an entrepreneur who was keeping up appearances and thought that he had money to spare. However, there was very little immediate oversight across these various Disney animated shows. Combine that then with the stigma that television could not make Disney the same big amounts of cash that their movies or parks could, we get a volatile formula building right here. Now, in the midst of all of this, Gravity Falls came into being, and it was a wild success with viewers. However, the show was so wild and weird on its own that it did not fit Disney's projected brand, and the executives clamped down on it and tried to suppress the series. The show survived because of the fans, which is important to note, and Disney refused to merchandise the popular show, and thereby it left millions of dollars on the table because they continued to chase billions. Now, that kind of makes sense, but at the same time, why would you leave millions on the table when you could pick that up? This weird combination of encouraged creativity, limited resources, limited oversight, and executive meddling at the end of each series led to Tangled the Animated Series never getting merchandised despite its popularity. And here is a little side note. Tangled the movie merchandise sells nearly as well as merchandise for Frozen, which is easily their most bankable movie of all time. But Disney did nothing with their expanded IP when it came to Tangled, again leaving millions, potentially tens of millions of dollars on the table. Then we have a show like Wander Over Yonder, which was meant to stick it to Cartoon Network and pull over hundreds of thousands of viewers from that station, but it was axed because it didn't immediately generate hundreds of thousands of new viewers for Disney. And then we have something like Phineas and Ferb, which was again a juggernaut at the time, but was barely given any sort of merchandise in order to capitalize on its wild success with adults and children. And then we have something like the DuckTales rebooted series. This was actually everything that the executives from the top down demanded that Disney Animation delivered on. They did it, but because it was never properly merchandised, and again the executives just didn't believe that it could really do much good for them when it came to the stock exchange, it also was axed. And then we have Amphibia. Amphibia was nearly ruined thanks to oversight, carelessness, and executive disregard of the whole thing. That show survived because Matt Brawley put his sweat, blood, and tears into that. And then we have something like The Owl House. Because it wasn't on Disney's brand, it was axed despite being given assurances of further seasons, and so they gave it a paltry 3 specials to round everything up. And oh boy, don't even get me started on the crazy amounts of money that Disney has spent buying anime licensing only to clamp down and prevent those shows from ever reaching the United States legally. Again, just leaving potentially millions of dollars on the table. This is a reoccurring problem right here, that Disney, while chasing after gold and whales, never bothers with the silver load at its feet. Now, to be fair, here's something to consider. Merchandising is a big risk for any sort of animated series, due to all of the research, the toy development, and advertising that has to go into it. But this is the strategy that keeps the anime industry running. Costs are kept low for each show production, and an extra budget is added in with the anticipation that toys, models, posters, clothes, and more can be sold to fans for each show that they like. Now, Disney has a lot of great shows, but they never gave them much thought or merchandise, leaving them only in the hands of the fans. And the fans do their own thing, and then Disney steals it and then never does anything with that stuff. This, therefore, ruins the connection between viewers and the company and cuts them off from generating more revenue. Now, Disney might argue that what I'm proposing right here is a bad business move, because while He-Man was a big commercial success for a time, the push to merchandise the show further led to everything falling apart. And plenty of anime don't do well, and their merch doesn't sell well. Therefore, anime companies really keep themselves afloat by casting a wide net of shows to offset any losses by having 1 or 2 big successes a year. For Disney then to replicate what the anime industry does as a whole, they would actually need to make more animated shows and get that merch rolling, which is a big financial investment, and especially at a time in 2023 when they're opening up the year bleeding cash. So therefore, from Disney's perspective, why put in all this effort when you can have $1 billion movie or 10 of those? Movies that make you look amazing and artificially inflate your stock. Why spend all those millions of dollars on animation to only get millions more back? And the stock exchange isn't wowed by great television. And given Disney's current financial straits at the beginning of this year, like I just said, the executives battling for control over the company really don't feel like the House of Mouse needs to engage in a risky investment in order to just mine a simple silver lode when there yet may be gold in them hills over there, boys. And let's not forget that all the problems that plagued Gravity Falls, Tangled, Wander Over Yonder, Amphibia, and The Owl House all happened under Bob Iger's steady hand before the company's mast. The anime debacle was Bob Chapek's doing. But Iger's not going to have a change of heart while he desperately fights to preserve his legacy, which is now more wrapped up in the Disney company than Walt Disney himself, because Iger wants to be the face of the House of Mouse. So, I spent all of this time on this history lesson in order to clearly illustrate how Disney's current situation threatens the connected cartoon universe. And that's a lot of problems that Disney will not let outsiders like ourselves dictate the outcomes for. So, what can we honestly do? The answer is to support the animators and creatives within Disney. Share your support through social media. Share your enthusiasm and ideas for their shows, and especially the connected cartoon universe. Like good fans, you should be involved. Even if Ricky Rat continues to break people's hearts, banding together is what nerds and fans do, and that is how we get things done. So create your art, make your videos, write your stories, play your fan music, share, and share. Wear your amazing cosplay. Be positive and be kind to others in the fan base. Positive interactions will do wonders and encourage those still at Disney to keep up the good fight, because Matt Brawley is there and lobbying behind the scenes to make this crossover happen. Now, I want to close with addressing why Disney should take the risk. Disney needs a win. There's a reason why they should invest in the connected cartoon universe. You see, the fans want to see their favorite shows respected, like the Owl House. The Owl House fans desperately want a good ending for this series, and they are hungry for consumables beyond just a journal of their favorite show. But Disney has burned through all of their good shows already, and the company has already said that new animated shows in the near future will be aimed at preschoolers, which again is not going to do much for them but keep costs low. But they're not going to bring in a lot of people or make a whole lot of money. So if Disney wants to make money, they should let Matt revive Gravity Falls, revive Amphibia, and give the Owl House a good ending with his crossover idea. And I wouldn't let it just be a special. No, make it a series with a merchandise line created to drum up excitement before it even premieres to bring the fans back, and then release the series and round it off with more goodies that the fans can consume. It is a risk that could generate a great payout and keep the fans around for more. I consulted briefly with Valiant Renegade and WDW Pro, who look at this stuff extensively, and they both said that Disney's big issue is that they keep outspending on projects and they're not keeping their fans around, and they're not producing consumables that people want. In fact, by putting everything just onto their streaming site, they actually cut out 2 other avenues for generating revenue per movie. So their movies are actually no longer generating as much revenue as they should. And because they're not properly utilizing their shows are also not making the money that they should. And as a result of that, like I said, they're losing millions. They're leaving it there at the table. Now, the company, Disney, the House of Mouse, will not make billions of dollars by doing this. In no way, in no sustainable universe would that actually ever happen. But it is a creative move that could generate a sustainable model for Disney's animated shows, keep their animation department alive, generate money that can keep everything sustainable, and it could lead to the company finally addressing some of their long-standing problems within their television division. So, while not their saving grace, the connected cartoon universe could be the creative and monetary boon that they need to reorient themselves. Imagine if Disney completely lost their grip on animation. I mean, they're no longer the kings of the industry, and I can point to just indie projects like Lackadaisy, Murder Drones, Hell of a Boss, and other shows that people do with a limited budget, but with the skill, time, and passion necessary to invest in these projects and make them comparative masterpieces to Disney's lackluster attempts these past decade. I wish I had better news, but I have to tell it like it is. But to finally address the last unanswered question, why should we do anything about this? Why keep talking about the connected cartoon universe if it's so at risk? Why intercede as these rich morons continue to burn down Disney? Well, speaking personally, I can only speak for myself here, but I miss Renaissance Disney. I miss great animation, and I miss gritty Disney. Like going back to the days of the Black Cauldron, I love that stuff. Let's have a return to form. I want to encourage creativity in the modern era, and there must be competition for the industry to flourish. If Disney's animation crumbles into oblivion, that will leave a hole in the industry that cannot be easily filled by indie creators or other companies. And I also want the Owl House to have some justice. I want a continuation of Amphibia because Matt Brawley definitely left it open, and I want Alex Hirsch to come back swinging in with some incredible answers and new mysteries a la Gravity Falls. And from where I'm standing, the Connected Cartoon Universe can help facilitate all of this. So if any of that resonates with you on any level, from Renaissance Disney to Gravity Falls to the Black Cauldron or anything like that, that would be reason enough to care and get involved. It'd be a shame to let Disney just crash and burn, and we have the power to do something about it. And I will address that more in an upcoming video. But this decade, the 2020s, is the decade of the fan. The entertainment industry has been rocked to its core, and technology has empowered us unlike any time before. There are enough creatives among us to make a real difference. We have the power to help save Disney from itself, or let the company slip up and let its animation legacy fall into the dusty halls of the past. Personally, I want Dipper, Ann, and Lou's to all meet. I want to see the chaos caused by Mabel and Sprig hanging out. And I want that sweet awkwardness between Stan and Ida. Give me that Connected Cartoon Universe. But enough of my pontification. Tell me what you think about all of this in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts and observations. And if you're a novice author looking for more writing advice, please check out our other videos here and our podcast found on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, the works. And we have writing exercises on our Pinterest page, and we would love to have you join our growing community of novice authors. And if you'd like to support our work, please check out our published books in the description below. Thank you for joining us on this crazy, sometimes frustrating, sometimes perplexing journey that we call writing. And until the next video, y'all, tschüss.
Money!